Hello, everybody. So sorry we were having some audio difficulties, but we are back. We are with you, and we are so excited about today's show. As I always say, this is What's the Message, where we try to find the hope in the headline. And I am here with my co host, my boss, the lady who runs everything, the one who gets it all done, Carmela Monk Crawford. And we are so excited for this conversation because we feel it is so critical and important for all of us. And so we pray that you enjoy this conversation and learn a lot from it. I'm super excited to welcome two friends of mine who are experts in this digital and technology space. The first is Dr. Paul Mcneil Phd. He is the founder of MB Usable Security LLC, and they focus on protecting and improving businesses' customer journeys from data-driven marketing to cybersecurity. He is also the interim chief technical officer of CT Speaks Ministries. He has experience in applying systems, engineering, and artificial intelligence technologies to marketing, cybersecurity, and emerging technologies research. Dr. Mcneil has served and serves as a consultant to organizations across academia, government, and various corporate sectors. He is an alum of Tennessee State, Vanderbilt, and Oakwood universities.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I'm
you.
sorry.
That's
Oh,
it.
was I online? Sorry. Excuse me.
Kirk Nugent is an innovator. He is a speaker. He's a leader. He is a host and a producer. And these are just some of the titles that accurately describe him. As a speaker, Kirk challenges everyday people to think holistically about their relationship to technology at work for career success and at home for their families. As a leader, he has managed information technology teams as director and CIO for an NGO in South Africa and for two higher ed institutions in Northern Alabama. He is the host and producer of the show How It All Works and has been instrumental behind several large-scale live stream broadcasts. He is a self-professed Jesus geek who loves to engage with audiences. I had the privilege of guest appearing on Kirk's show, How It All Works, this Monday, a couple days ago. And that is such a well-produced show there as well. You want to make sure to follow them on YouTube also. So today I am really excited because I don't know about you, but I have seen just this kind of pandemic shift over the last several months. And Carmela, I'm just wondering, I'm interested, man, what are your thoughts? How have you been feeling with this digital shift? What's going through your mind? Let us know what's going on in the world.
Well, Claudia, my feelings are so irrelevant in this space right now. Just like everybody else who has a comfort level that does not involve tech, our feelings and our comfort level is irrelevant. Because like it or not, our churches, our workplaces, our schools, everybody on a personal level, from your family reunions to funerals to weddings, has had to make the shift. So whether or not we like this, it's here, and it might be here. I would dare say it is here for a long time. We're looking at, and Claudia, you crack me up every week when you try to, you're the hype woman here. Not only just, to bring it into discussion, but you hype me up every week, and much love and much respect to you. But Claudia has us pulling together this information, and I was amazed at just several points. When we look at, we're talking about the digital divide, and we're talking about some of the implications of having to go digital. Mm-hmm. You look on a worldwide scale, which is why we're so impressed and so blessed to have these guests today that can talk not just about what's happening here, but around the world. But when you look at it, and you would think, okay, what are we going through? But of the top 10 nations that have internet access and connectivity or fast connectivity, the United States is barely holding on number 10.
Yeah.
There's so many other nations who are doing this faster and more efficiently. And that's something to think about. Maybe the frustration that we have is about whether or not we can get on and get access. And so that's one thing, so the United States down number 10 behind Japan, North Korea at the top, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland. So that's something right there. But then we think about on a global scale where you have 36 billion people with a B who are not connected, right? So that's half of the world that are online. And they're saying, even then, the half of the people who are online, maybe some of them are like your mom, my grandma, my aunts. My aunt cracked me up a couple of weeks ago. She says, maybe Zoom is not for the elderly because we're having a hard time. That's what she's saying. So there's some people who are on, but they can't get on all the time. Right. Or they even count in that 54% of the world, they get on maybe once a month. Would you consider that connected to the world? And this has a lot of implications because one, what we have all seen is that the people who don't have access do not have access to be able to pay their bills online. Churches, I still know that there are churches where the pastors are opening up so that people can drive through and drop off their envelope for tithe and offering. People are not able to access that. Think about what children are not able to do if they do not have internet connectivity. We've all heard of the stories of the mothers who are driving into a parking lot for 4 hours a day so that they can be there where there's Wi-Fi access. This has a lot of implications. What about the healthcare? When my daughter was sick, we had to go over to the hospital and we were met there with a sister on an iPad. She was on the iPad talking to us. It's a different world. But I think more than that, one quote or one statistic that I thought was interesting, and I'm coming to you. What I thought was very interesting is that when we don't have access, the people who have the platform to tell the story controls the narrative. Isn't that right? So if on the continent, the motherland, you got 25% has meaningful connectivity, who's telling the story? And so now we see how this drives the political narrative. We see how this drives so many different things from health to finance to politics. So I'm blessed that we're here today. This is all in the headlines. This is all in our lives, whether we want it or not. Talk to me, Kirk Nugent. What are we supposed to be doing if you do not have connectivity? What are the top few things that you want to say? If you were talking to my aunt, my uncle, what's the top few things you want to say to get them plugged in? Not that they are watching today. This is something that we would have to be digital missionary to the people around us, right?
Right. I mean, if you don't have internet, if you don't have a way to connect, a way to really reach out, I mean, because that's how we have been keeping community and keeping in touch with our loved ones, how we've been working throughout this pandemic, especially for offices that have been closed. But I mean, if you don't have that, leaning on your support system, right, your family. I know from my parents, I sent them they have a phone, they have internet at home, they have an internet plan on their phone as well. But making sure this is a time where I'm saying to, so we said we have this term that says digital immigrants and digital natives, right? So I still would be considered a digital immigrant. Because of the time frame in which I was born and when I grew up. But the digital natives, they live and breathe this stuff. And so for the digital natives, this is a time to check on your digital immigrants. Maybe not necessarily your older cousins like me, but your grandma, your grandpa, your dad, your mom, people who did not grow up with internet, who did not grow up on these platforms. It is a difficult shift and pivot to make, especially if they don't have connectivity at home. So this is a time where you really want to lean on those people and try some new things. I was talking to a faculty member and she was like, I'm learning things in the morning and I'm implementing them in the evening. It has not happened in my 20-something year career in higher ed academics, but that's a good thing. That means that she's having to take a fresh look at her course content, a fresh look at how she delivers knowledge transfer to be able to deal with the times that we're in. Is it gonna work? I mean, if you usually go to the whiteboard and write something, can you really do that in this time frame? So thinking about, a lot of people look at it as the challenges of the moment, but there is plenty of opportunities of the moment as well. Mm-hmm. and opportunities also for us to be cognizant of our circles. The wellness check is real, fam. We need to be checking on one another. People who don't have outlets to be able to connect online, to be able to reach out to family members. I sent my mom and dad a stand, a little stand that they can put their phone in, because my mom got tired of talking to me on WhatsApp because she was holding her phone up. And she's like, I got to get off because I can't be holding my phone no more. Yeah. But I found a little stand on Amazon for $20-$30. I sent it to her. And now we can continue the conversation. What I'm trying to say is we have to look after one another. There's some components. Yes, we're in a very digital, high-tech, high-touch age. But there's some components of the community. And that's something that the Black community has done well but there's components of the community we cannot lose in this moment, in this time frame, where we look to one another, where we share with one another, where we check in on one another, and to ensure that we can connect and to ensure that we still have the sense of community that we had when we could be in person and actually meet with one another in gathering places.
So I heard you talk about a stand. I heard you talk about make sure they have the internet. Is there anything else you think that would help, would facilitate that ongoing community?
I don't know if Dr. Mcneil wanted to touch it, but I would also share, I know for us at my church, there's a number of things that we have been doing to try to make sure that there's still some community. Try to make sure that, especially for those who are not engaged online, that we do things that, maybe for a little while there when it was okay, we were doing some deliveries of meals, but that has since stopped. But trying to make sure that we engage even in our church services in a way that allows for people who are maybe not online or maybe can only call in to be able to participate. There are ways that you can be able to afford people that kind of platform. Even when you're doing live streaming, even when you're doing the high tech stuff, you can still bring the low tech along with you to be able to accommodate people who don't necessarily have, let's say, internet. But what I do believe, the numbers are much higher for people who have a phone. So they may not have a data plan, but if you can set up on your live stream or your Zoom or on whatever you're using to even for family meetings, I know a friend of mine had a family reunion on Zoom. They had to upgrade to the enterprise account. They had people called in. I think they had almost 500 people on there, but this is not something that they would normally be able to do. And of course, somebody had to go over to grandma's house and bring the phone to her. But again, it's a combination of the two. Trying to make sure that not only do we engage in the technical space, but we engage one-on-one as well, where possible and where we can continue to be safe.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. And a lot of those points, Kirk just took right from under me. But I will say it's great to know that, others are also looking at it in that way, because that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to community. It comes down to the younger generation reaching back, right. to those digital immigrants and making it accessible. So my family did like a family reunion thing for my grandmother's 97th birthday on Zoom. And we had, I think we had maybe 100 accounts, but we had people gathered at home. So there was like maybe 6 people per camera. So it was quite a few people. And so now you're sitting there, you're like, wow, this is something that we would not have done other than this pandemic, right?
Exactly.
When Kirk mentioned having, these in-person checks, I think that a lot of families, you have somebody who can be designated for these elderly people so they're not putting you at risk. I know in Canada, they had this thing called the double bubble. And so what they were doing during their quarantine up there is that they would have one other home besides your own that you were allowed to kind of go to.
Nice.
And so when you have younger people in these spaces where, you know, grandma or great aunt or so forth doesn't have technology to be able to get tapped in, having an assigned person who, hey, I'm going by on, you know, Sabbath mornings to be able to log in with them so that they can enjoy this. Also, with churches, like my dad's a pastor in Northeastern Conference, so we made sure that we made accessible that phone line for families that might not have internet, so they could still call in and listen and participate to the church service each week, as well as any kind of prayer meetings or business meetings that were occurring. So I think that that human piece is very, very needed. And I think even though we are about to discuss this digital divide and we're about to talk about this digital shift, I think the important thing that we need to keep focus on is that technology is a tool, right? It's a tool to connect people. And so while we enjoy doing things a certain way and we have this new tool, it's important to make sure that that tool doesn't replace its purpose. It's supposed to be used. It's not supposed to own us.
Got it, man. That's well said, sir.
Guys,
well said.
And I really value what you said, Paul. He's like my friend. I know since I was a child, so there's a part of me that's like Dr. Mcneil. You know, gotta give him his credit.
Elementary.
Yeah. So, but I really value, you know, how you ended there, because I think so many are afraid that, you know, we're trying to advocate in this digital shift the complete removal of human contact.
Right.
So that it's like, oh no, we don't need anything that's in person. We don't need anything that's in print. All we need is digital. All we need is online. We don't want any substitutes or subsequent, and all the effort and energy should be pushed behind getting everybody online and us doing everything online. And what I kind of hear the both of you saying is digital technology is a tool that is supposed to help us, you know, in very real life, in-person contact, maintain these kinds of relationships, maintain community and things of this nature, but it's not supposed to take over it. And so I really want to re-emphasize that here in this space, you know, for those of you that are watching, and go ahead and share this, because this is really great information, a really great conversation that we want to get around to as many people as possible. So
absolutely,
click the share button. But I really want you guys to hear what they're saying, in that when we have conversations about the importance of being online, we're not saying that that is to the neglect, exclusion, or replacement of in-person contact. So with that said, when you guys hear about conversations, right, whether that be this fall about, you know, should we return to school? Should people return to work? Should people return to church? Or should everybody, you know, remain in quarantine and just be digital? You know, what comes to you guys' mind? Should, you know, you guys are the people that are the consultants and kind of like the behind the scenes of getting everybody on this platform. You know, it is up to your personal benefit for us to stay in quarantine, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
no doubt about
it. Keeping it 1,000, it's to their personal benefit,
sure is.
Right?
Captive audience,
But what are you guys' philosophies and ideas around this? You know, should school, should church, should work remain kind of on digital platforms, or, you know, should we be considering, you know, moving to in person? And Paul, I'll start with you.
Sure. Appreciate that. So interesting. One of the things that little side projects I've been working on with some educators is how they can kind of start their own online school groups for those that don't want to return to the classroom as an alternative to still, you know, supplement their income. And so one of the things that I would say is I feel that particularly as a country, we're just not patient enough, right? So I wouldn't say we need to not ever go back into the classroom or to the churches. I just think that we're doing it much sooner before we fully know the effects of everything that is going on with COVID. So, so my advice or my opinion or recommendation is generally around that of assessing who the others around you that you can affect. If you live with elderly, if you live with really small children, you might not want to go back into the classroom. You might not want to go back into the church space. And I think that that part is kind of where it's individual. But as a society, personally, I feel as though we're kind of being kind of quick to the draw to jump right back in before we've gotten all the information about this, because I feel like we're still in a state where every week, every couple of weeks, we're finding out new side effects, we're finding out new things.
Yeah.
And I think that I understand it, where we want to be able to touch, we want to be able to feel. And I think that having, as we talked about earlier, kind of like that double bubble mentality.
Yes.
There can be small, microcosms that you create. Maybe I'm just visiting grandma, but I think that until this thing gets a little more underhand, that we should actually be looking at ways to sustain this kind of remote world, not indefinitely, but a little bit longer than the 3 months, right?
I mean, yeah, well said. Well said. I couldn't agree more. I'm not a doctor of any sort, but everything that I look at in terms of, I'm a medical doctor in terms of this whole pandemic, but everything that I'm seeing, it resembles an experiment.
Right.
I don't see any certainty from anyone, even from the authorities who are supposed to be certain. So and being a carpenter's son and living under the motto of you measure twice, cut once, I err on the side of caution. Having lived in Africa, where they have a term where they say you must pinch to ensure the person is dead before you bury them.
Okay.
You need to verify. You know what I mean? So even as they talk about the vaccine, I don't think I'm taking. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of decisions, concrete, hard decisions that are being made, but I don't believe that they have all the information. So I'm pulling back from the medical side of it, just looking at it from a practical standpoint, and I'm saying it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to push. And here's the other part of it, right? From a business perspective. There's no shortcut to success, right? You just have to do the work. What I see across North America, specifically the United States, is a shortcut mentality, the microwave mentality. You put it in put it in there, zap it, and when it ding, you're out. Look at some of the work. I'm talking hardcore work some of the countries have done to ensure that their numbers have gone down, and in some cases they have zero. I think you said it, Dr. Mcneil, that we're impatient. We want it now, but we want it without the work. And if we don't get to a place where we recognize we're just going to have to do the work, right? Of staying indoors, socially distancing, thinking first of others rather than my own way. I don't want to wear a mask. I look stupid. Okay.
Or you
you don't know. People don't look stupid in the casket, though.
Right.
So there's. I think we have a very real choice on our hands. And let me also add this. And again, this is outside of my wheelhouse, but one of the trends I see happening, especially as other countries have flattened or have gone to zero and have reopened completely. There are countries that have opened. I was working with somebody in New Zealand last week, and they were saying, we've had 0 cases for 24 days. We're reopening everything. Now, their borders are closed. And that's the trend I want to speak to, is that their borders are closed, and their borders are closed specifically to the U.S. I think what we're going to see if the United States continues to portray this "we don't care, we've given up on the pandemic" kind of attitude, we're going to see the rest of the world lock it down and lock us out. And I think that right there is a scenario that we're not prepared for, and we really need to be concerned about.
I think I have a friend.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I had a conversation with a friend around the beginning of all of this, and she said, Americans are going to suffer from rugged individualism. She said, what's going to happen is, as a society, we are not willing to put our personal beliefs, our personal rights and comforts to the side for the good of the next man.
Right.
And when you look at a lot of the countries that do have low to zero cases, they did that. They have a much stronger sense of community. Even this discussion, we're talking about a digital divide. There are articles where they're saying, oh, this is the first time we've considered the fact that some of our students don't have internet at home, although we've known about it forever and we just didn't get around to fixing it. But now all of a sudden it's an issue. It didn't become an issue until we really felt it. And so I think that while it's a strength to, you know, kind of be capitalistic and rugged individualism, it's one of our traits. It's also turning out in this particular case to be some kind of a weakness as a society. And if we're not able to strengthen that muscle, I think that we are going to start seeing it from a business standpoint, have negative effects on our economy, on our connections and relationships with other countries. And we're kind of seeing that already, right? We're already seeing people that are saying, we don't want Americans to come Zoom us. And so
that's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you're talking about putting in the work, Kirk Nugent, I think putting in the work in terms of our digital infrastructure is a place that we've all been exposed to now.
Absolutely.
And one thing I think is interesting in this conversation, a thing that I've noticed when I talk to people around me who are technically gifted, savvy, and you work in the work, is the counterintuitive. Rather than say, we should wire this, we should do this, we should you know, provide this platform or that platform, I see the opposite. We're saying we're doing this, but you got to keep the compassion in here. You got to keep the love. You got to be able to touch people. And so I'm hearing the balance coming from the people who work in the industry. And I've heard that many times where people say, you know, I work at Facebook or Google, but I don't let my kids go online. Okay, because of the, you know, going across the line. But here's my thing that I wanted to ask, and you can come back to this, but you know, and that there's two things. One, we, just like you go into a language immersion, I think the last 4 months have put us into a digital immersion as we put off trying to learn the language of social media, put off trying to learn the language of how to do things so you don't have to actually be in the same room. We all had to learn. So this is by immersion that we're learning this. But as one thing I want to know is 2 Black Christian men. What would you like to see? Because my heart, as I'm reading the articles, and I'm, you know, thinking about the children who don't have access and all that kind of thing, what is your perfect world for digital access? What would you like to see us do for people around us, maybe digitally?
I was waiting to see if Doc was going to say something, but I mean, me personally, there's a what social media has done for the news industry. It kind of has democratized the headlines, essentially. I mean, sometimes it'll break on Twitter before CNN can get it. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes, I mean, in fact, they'll quote Twitter. They'll say, "Oh, he's on so and so's account," and they'll put the @ sign. Anyway, one of the things I would like to see. I mean, it's if we level the playing field, we never know what will end up coming out, because there's somebody out there who has not been given an opportunity, who's probably a technical genius and have never even touched the internet. So if we could look at internet as we look at water, and just to make sure everybody has it. Now, if you don't want to bathe, but you got a pipe, that's a different story. But if you want to bathe and you don't have water, you can't bathe. And I think if we could look at internet from that perspective, I'm not talking about all the technical. I see an access to the internet as the great equalizer. And if from my perspective, I mean, I haven't even touched on ministry, I haven't touched on education, I haven't touched on any of that stuff yet. I haven't touched on learning modalities, the way people physically learn. But if we were to have that kind of setup, that kind of opportunity, we don't even know what we might end up with in terms of some of the 2010. They already had something in East Africa coming down to Southern Africa called M-Pesa, where they were doing essentially the exact same thing. The chip cards that we have in our bank cards now, they had them years ago. What I'm trying to say is, sometimes, and you touched on this at the beginning of the program, Carmela, that sometimes the infrastructure and the established ways that we have here in our country, we have to go through the different iterations of technology. Other countries sometimes have the benefit of skipping, leapfrogging. So whereas we went through the token ring and the dial-up, you remember the 56K, we went through all those iterations. We went through the Cat 1s and the 3s and the Cat 5 now we got Cat 6. Folks, some people are just skipping straight to 802.11. Some are skipping straight to Wi-Fi. Some are skipping straight to 5G, 4G. You get what I'm saying? And there is when you leapfrog like that, you get a chance to get rid of the old infrastructure, the old technology. But in this country, we have systems in place that will not allow us to do that kind of leapfrog. And so there's an innovation that can happen when things are available to everyone. And so it's not just a matter of, okay, internet should be available to everyone, but what does that actually mean systematically as a country? How do we ensure that everybody has internet? And then there are those who do not benefit, to be clear, when everyone has internet. Okay, if we make internet like water, then how do we benefit from it? How do I make it my business? And there are some businesses that would go down. So there's a lot to think about when you talk about an ideal scenario. And I know I've talked probably too much. This is a problem when you bring a talker on the show. I'm just letting you know from now. I'm a talker.
I'm here for it. I'm listening.
But these are the problem when we look at it from the standpoint of what would be ideal. That would be my thing, is to ensure that everybody has at least internet as a base, and then we can build from there in terms of what you want to have in your household individually. But to me, that should be something that we are looking to solve as a basic right, because otherwise, I mean, it's not just during the pandemic, to be clear, and I think Dr. Mcneil brought that up earlier. Yeah. These issues existed before the pandemic. The pandemic has shined a floodlight on them. Right. And so now we're trying to figure them out in my opinion, hostile environment. So I'll stop there.
No, I think that it's one of those situations where we could have been prepared for this much better, and we ignored the problem because it wasn't to our immediate benefit to do so.
There you go.
Right? I think Kirk, you really spoke on how we have systems in place that stop us from innovation.
Yes, we do.
So
we do.
A lot of these technologies that Kirk mentioned, and there are several others, like there are things that were going on. Japan had video phones back in the early 2000s. Like in the early 2000s, they were doing video phones, and we didn't get ours until 5, 6, 7 years ago, because it wasn't financially beneficial for us to jump straight and leapfrog certain things sometimes. And so if you know anything about like the music industry, and you think about how music has progressed since it's been online, right? There was a time where you had to go through gatekeepers to get your album out, period. It didn't matter how great you were. It didn't matter, how many people thought, how many of your friends liked your stuff. If you weren't approved by these tastemakers, you were not going to get out there. And so in the early 2000s, you had a lot of horrible music that got out there, but it was because everyone was just so excited that the fountain was turned on. No one cared about filter. And I think that now the internet, and even though it's not everywhere, we're getting to a point now where, as far as music is concerned, we can turn that filter on, and now you can say, well, we still want to have the good music from the 80s and 90s, but we also want to be able to access it anywhere. And so we're at a point right now where when you have things like the removal of net neutrality and things like that happening under the radar because people aren't aware of it.
Exactly.
It gets moved from where it was kind of like this telephone system where the quality has to be, equal for everyone. And like the water system where I can't give you drips and drops, Claudia, because you don't pay me as much. Right. And I give a steady stream, to Kirk because he has more money. And that's kind of what we're doing with the internet. And so what's happening now is it is starting to affect the bottom line of those who were literally just fighting to stop this kind of access. Absolutely. So for me, in a perfect world, everyone has access, but everyone has protected access. I'm a cybersecurity guy, so I'm going to have to throw in this privacy. Say it. So while I would love for everyone to have access, I'm concerned that we don't also have ownership over data. So we're seeing a lot of these cases now where you have Facebook, Amazon, and Google. I don't care what anybody says, they're monopolies because they own most of the data in the world, period. And we haven't, one, rewritten legislation to be able to break up these new data versions of monopolies because they don't fit the old standard of a business. And what happens now is we're going to see, as we're giving more and more access,
We are.
if you don't own your data, you can still be taxed, because now the new currency becomes Claudia's preferences. Because if I have Claudia's information from Facebook, Google, or whatever, or it's my new company, right? I can tell Claudia, well, because you've decided that you don't want to share certain information with me, certain functionalities are going to be to the wayside. Now, there are policies and compliance that are out there to try to stop that from happening, but that's going to be the new game, is going to be the data. I personally don't believe that you shouldn't get a piece of the money that Facebook is making off of your data. They're selling it. Why are you not getting? So I think for me, in a perfect world, everyone has internet access and everyone is paid for what they are or who they are, because really that's work. That's who you are. That's what you're doing. There's no reason we shouldn't all be receiving residual income for the decisions, the things that we like, especially if someone is there brokering it like a middleman. They're making millions and millions of dollars knowing how to group Kirk, Claudia, and Carmela, and Paul in these particular areas, knowing which ad to show you at what time, knowing what you've been searching so that they know exactly what part of the purchasing process you're in. So I did a lot of like analytics and marketing. So that's kind of where I see this. So I'm
gold,
saying
absolute gold, Doc.
This is where for me the perfect setup is. It's in access, but it's also in ownership and protection.
So and so let me just piggyback on that just a little bit. Yes, we should be paid, and that compensation can take form in many different ways. And maybe that's how you solve the access issue. Maybe that's how you make internet free. You get what I'm trying to say is the way we're compensated for our data, for our intellectual property, for our habits and our preferences. The way we can be compensated for that is that thing is democratized. Everybody has internet. And then the Comcasts and the Fios and all those people of the world, they come down because we're not paying that anymore. So there are ways that we can make that thing work that may not necessarily be a monetary number, but we can still gain benefit from it.
It's so true. And I'm not going to take the bait of going down the rabbit hole, because I feel like capitalism will not permit that. And I'm not going to take the bait and go down that rabbit hole. But what Paul brought up is just so critical in my mind, and so particularly about the protection. And that's absolutely that was a shift that I wanted to go to and get to with the both of you today as well, because I have family members, I know people who are absolutely unwilling to do anything online, right? Like my grandmother does not pay not man bill. Look, I'm real Black American, not man bill.
There you go. There you go.
Online, all right? Like, my mother has to go pick her up, take her to the bank, take her to these various places, and then she gives them her check. Okay, like that is what she wants to continue to do. She is like almost 90 years old, right? So my mother, who isn't 90, doesn't buy online, does not, she no. If she needs to get an outfit for a program, she's going to take a trip.
Shopping will never die.
Okay, she's gonna spend the day in Chicago. All right. She's not purchasing clothing or in things like that online, because she does not want her credit card information out there, right?
Mercy.
So talk to us a bit about, how can we make this shift? How can we get online when I'm afraid that, if you have my credit card number, the other thing that is coming to my mind right now is literally everything is online. Banking is online right now. Education is online. Health access is online. If you needed to see a therapist or a doctor, you are telehealthing unless it's absolutely necessary, right? So there's a huge shift to where not only a lot of my information, but my person is now being brought into the digital space that people are not often comfortable with. How can I do this and still be protected not have Mark and Tom take advantage of my information.
I think, and I'll jump in and then I'll let Kirk.
Please do.
I would go for one, almost leaning into that paranoia. First off, all your stuff is online already, right? Whether you go to the store, they're backing up your credit card and their transactions on the internet. So whether you do it at home or you do it in the store, your stuff's already out there. It's available. People can hack it. People can find it.
Yes.
So I think that understanding that, like in this age, the people you are handing your information over to do business are backing it up online, even if you aren't. So now you're putting yourself in a huge inconvenience, and you're still at risk. So I think the education is really the solution, right? So understanding what's a secure website, what kind of cybersecurity protocols does this company have in place? Am I making a purchase and they have end-to-end encryption? What does end-to-end encryption even mean? Having digital literacy, particularly around protection and cybersecurity protocols, so that you can hold these various services and organizations to a standard, I think is really the step moving forward. So if you're, and I understand, I have a similar situation. Like I was just explaining to my dad the other day that you can use Instacart to not have to go to the store and have them deliver your groceries. And he was like, what is going on here? So there's going to be some awkwardness and there's going to be some feeling of being uncomfortable in these shifts, particularly for those who are not digital natives and aren't more recent digital immigrants, right?
Right.
But the reality is education. So one, they can do self-education. Two, as digital natives, we can educate them. And to an extent, some people are just not going to make that full transition and shift. And that's also their choice. The choice is always in your hands. I think that education helps, but ultimately, you have to do what feels right for you and the level of risk that you feel fits. So that's kind of the advice that I would give to someone.
I have a couple of questions here that I want to jump in and ask you. And I see you, Kirk, but
go ahead.
Something that he was saying. And I'm going to say it. This is going to be embarrassing to a lot of people, but I'm going to say it anyhow. Okay? People are not just insecure about their data online. There's plenty of people that I know who read into their online interactions and digital data an apocalyptic fear. People don't want to be traced because at some point I got to run to the rocks in the hills and I don't want to. So come on, talk to us. Am I wrong for bringing that up? Am I wrong?
That's great.
I'm sorry.
I didn't even think about that. That's great. That's
come on. That's a part of our whole. And maybe also as a Black person, you just feel surveilled all the time. And so my thing is, if everybody is got their data out, are they watching me? But talk to me. Talk to me how I balance and how I navigate through this.
Okay, let me say. Okay, let me see if I can do well. First, let me add to what Paul said. Yes, the digital education needs to happen, but also be cognizant of your policies on your credit card, right? So don't use your debit card. Oh my God, don't use your debit card. Use something that if you call, so if something happens on my credit card, I can call the credit card and say that was not me, and they refund me immediately. That does not work on your debit card. Nope. So understand the policies behind the credit, what you're going to use online. If you're going to make a purchase online, understand the policies behind it so that if something does happen, you're covered. So yes, understanding the digital piece and being educated and understanding that your stuff is already out there. It's already out there. Can I say that one more time? It's already out there. So what are you protecting? It's already out there. They already know where you are. You have a bank account. They know who you are. Do you receive money? Do you have a Social Security number? Do you file taxes? They know where you are. They know who you are. Okay, so let me come to your point now, Carmela. I watched a show. It was called Hunted. It was on Fox for like one season, and it was gone. The show had I think it was 7 different teams that they would come up to them and tap them and say, you're on the run. Okay. And then they had a team of FBI, CIA, all the 3 letters. Okay,
That's
all
all
of them, and they had a team that was chasing them. What I found interesting is that the people who completely went off the grid had their accounts co-opted, and they used those accounts against them, and they found them. The people who continue to engage, right? They had friends all over posting different posts on their account, taking a picture with the newspaper on it. Those people evaded capture for the full days. What I'm trying to say is this: a lot of folks want to say, okay, I need to be fully offline for people not to find me. I don't think that's true. I think you need to leave some breadcrumbs around if you really want to disappear.
All right.
So when we were looking from the conspiracy theory side, we need to run to the hills. Yeah, run to the hills. But take a mobile device with you, and keep posting, keep posting, use a VPN. Post like as if you're in Sweden. You got what I'm saying is engaging throws people off. You just leave the trail cold. Folks are like, okay, this is when they dropped off the grid, and we just need to search from here, and we can find them.
To piggyback off what Kirk said, I think that the definition of what the hills, running to the hills, means has shifted. The problem that we have a lot of times in our communities where we're trying to prepare to run to the hills is that we haven't interpreted it as such. When the Waldenses ran to the hills, right, they were doing what was necessary to avoid for the technology of that time. We have heat-seeking radars and stuff
now, sir.
So just going to the hills in today's society doesn't make sense. What you need is to make sure that in your cave you got a hacker.
Come on, Doc.
You have like a
talk
doctor.
to him.
You have to have things that fit what you're going up against. You have to, for lack of a better term, you have to know your enemy. If that is if that's the route that you want to take. And so I think that a lot of times as Kirk said, you're trying to stay off the grid and all those kinds of things. That's a huge red flag. That's now weird to me because if I'm monitoring and searching and all of a sudden I just don't see any internet activity, I don't see any parking tickets, I don't see any posts, I don't see any.
You're throwing up a red flag.
That's very weird. Now I am really going to dig in. To Carmela's point, there's so much information on the internet. You go, well, are they really looking at just mine? And so you think about just the like the law of large numbers. You just think of, okay, if everyone, millions of people are online, who am I looking for? If I'm looking for 10 people, the 10, am I going to start looking at the 10 people that are all online? Or I'm going to do, hey, let's start, these like 15 people seem to just be off the grid. I'm probably going to look for you in there first because it's a red flag. This is the most interesting anomaly. So I think that understanding that in 2020, running to the hills is going to look different than it did in the 16th century. I think that we have to just understand that just the same way we have certain comforts and medication and things of that nature, that is also going to be different. I think you still need to understand how to live off of the land. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I know several people who have bought acres and acres of land in the country, in the mountains, because they believe that in and of itself is going to protect them. And I don't think that's going to be any more effective than getting back to a Garden of Eden diet where you stop at the pit stop, which is Morningstar patties. I get it. I grew up vegetarian. I love Morningstar, and I'm not personally at a raw vegan diet or have any intention of going there.
Yeah, it's a nicotine patch, Doc. I mean, it was never meant to be a diet.
These things were supposed to be these nicotine patches. These are things supposed to step you down, and if you stop in the middle, that's cool. But if you only start out living in the country but don't have any understanding of the technology that's coming to be used against you, you're going to be as unmanned as when we've had any war where a superpower went to a new country. When England came to the New World, the technology was there, so they were able to capture and create these large systems and spread colonialism. That happens because of a mismatch and a lack of understanding of advanced technology. So if we don't start to understand the technologies, you're not going to survive running any hills at all.
And the other thing that I want to attack on there, I know time is short, but
leaving me, Kirk. So you got to be legit quick. Go ahead.
Okay, a lot of us identify technology as internet and something else. There's technology in everything. There's technology in everything. Solar power is technology. If you're going to run to the hills, you're going to need solar power. You need to understand technology. What I'm saying is, one of the things I'm known for on campus, and I'm done, is this one phrase: there are no non-IT jobs. Everyone is IT. I'll stop there.
That's good. No.
I have another question.
Wait, I got a quote.
I got one more. Carmela, did you say you had a question?
Yes, me too.
All right, gentlemen. Carmela, you ask your question. I'm asking mine. These are legit 60 seconds. It is 11:54.
Come on. Let's hear it.
Real 60-second
rapid fire. So part 2, is that what I'm hearing? I'm hearing a
part two.
Lightning
Rapid
round.
fire until part 2. Carmela, hit it.
So one thing I was going to say right now is that, I think what's funny is that we tend to put God in a box, that God works in the physical 1600 realm. No technology is a stumper for the Lord. I know they're looking down all the time. See, they running the OS 11?
Come on.
Whatever. We got this. Who knows what God is going to do in this time, in this season? But here's my question. So for all the people who are teaching, preaching, connecting online, give us your best tip for landing your point online, coming across, being effective online.
That's great.
I would say knowing where your audience plays. Okay. Understanding where your audience lives and how they use the internet is going to be key to getting your point across online. If you're a church full of young people, you need to understand social media. If you're a church with older people, you need to understand what platforms or how they're interacting with that technology, and then be able to put it in various forms, whether it's audio, visual, or written.
So I'm going to just piggyback and say two things. One, I totally agree. And this, what Paul is saying, is exactly why data is important. And so we have allowed the world and the devil's playground to use the data for as long as we can, as for all this time. And have we harnessed the power of data? Because understanding your audience online means getting at that data. And the other thing I'll share is being real. I don't know that this is an online thing, but honestly speaking, I mean, every person I've spoken to who is successful online said, man, as soon as I dropped the facade, that's when people started to really connect. As soon as I started sharing my struggles, all right, where I am not doing well, not the highlight reel, that's when my followers just jumped. That's when I really started to connect with people. That's when the requests started coming in. Being real, being available, being vulnerable where possible, that's going to connect online.
Wow.
Got to drop the respectability politics.
Absolutely.
That's it. Yo, so the last question I have for you guys, and this also has to be a real quick one, is digital access something that the church should be doing? Is it a social justice issue that we can and should get behind? And if so, what is maybe one quick way that a church can aid in this? Because, as we talked a little bit earlier, and I think Paul mentioned it, we're aware of the fact that many of our young kids who go to public schools have absolutely no connection to the internet. They are going to McDonald's to get the Wi-Fi. There are some states who have allowed buses to kind of park in various communities to access Wi-Fi. But there is a real crisis around our young people not being able to study and submit their homework. And that's just one thing. Then we could go down the line of healthcare. We can go down the line of banking and finances. What are some ways that churches can not just get online to do ministry and have their live stream, but to really kind of take digital ministry and digital access to the next level around this social justice issue?
Excellent.
I'll jump in here. First, you mentioned, is this an issue that churches, a social justice issue that churches should be involved with? And I think that the answer to that is absolutely yes. And
Absolutely.
if you feel weird about using, the church being involved in social justice, then think of it as a felt need. Okay. At the end of the day, when Jesus was ministering, he would stop, right? And everyone is hungry. No one can hear the message that I have. I need to feed them.
Sir, preach.
Technology today is a felt need. It can be the difference for someone for being able to apply to a job, being able to get a remote job, being able to learn. So if you can provide that, or you can advocate for them in that, you've now opened up the opportunity for you to even give them the message. So even if you don't want to call it social justice, think of it as the first step to friendship evangelism. We all love evangelism, right? So here we go, felt need. Now I'm listening to what else you have to say. Now getting practical, what's something that they can do? There are a lot of mobile data enabled devices, tablets, notebooks, Chromebooks. Churches can get together. They can find out how many students they have. They can maybe say, hey, tell us how many of your friends live near you who also have this issue. And they can go out in their community and literally share, ensure, because little kids break stuff, ensure, share, and possibly sponsor and pay for in part or in full that monthly plan so that these kids can actively have it. You can put your picture on the background. You can scrape in the church logo on the side. You can do regular check-ins. You now have opened a door of access to your community that you didn't have before in a way that makes a lot of sense, that says we're with you, we care about you, and putting your money where your mouth is. So that would be my quick 60-second.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say much more because he's really tackled it. I mean, those are gold. I mean, in terms of meeting the need, getting out there and meeting the need. The only thing I'm going to add, Shireen Saunders says in the comments, internet equals access, education, opportunity, and more. I think the more part is the exploration. Yes, it means that they can turn in their homework and maybe meet with a doctor or maybe even apply to a job. But the exploration piece that people are not able to do because they don't have access is also critical, because when they are able to explore, they may be able to create. And if they're able to create, the entire world may be able to benefit.
Wait. There's one thing that you guys did not mention.
The voice.
Come on, Robert.
Speak to the IT professionals in your church. They can normally find ways to get lower cost equipment available. We have many ways, many different organizations who want to give out free or low cost equipment that you can then distribute. So you don't have to go to your local Best Buy. I have nothing against Best Buy. You don't have to go to your local Best Buy to buy the most expensive thing. Talk to the IT people in your church.
Can I piggyback? I know this may seem a little awkward, but the one question somebody asked me recently, what is the one question you get from young people, when they're looking at you and saying, oh, it's CIO, blah, blah, blah. What is the one question you get? And I tell them the one question I get from young people is, how did you become a missionary as an IT guy? I see medical folks do that. I see pastors do that. I see doctors do that. How do you do that as an IT guy? I said, because I'm also a minister. What we need to do, because I hear him say, oh, talk to your IT folks at your church. What we need to do in our churches is ensure that media professionals and IT professionals recognize that they are also ministers, that they are also called, God has entrusted them with unique skills and talents that need to be used in his service. And there's no greater time for those skills to be used than right now. So we need to empower them. Yes, talk to your IT people at the church, but don't just talk to them and looking for a discount, looking for them to find a cheaper way for you. Allow them a seat at the table and allow them a voice and vote. Listen to their counsel. Listen to their perspective. They see life differently than you do. And that perspective is what I feel has been missing. And to be quite honest with you, I also feel that that's what God has done. He has allowed this pandemic to happen for us to wake up and recognize the awesome opportunities that we have around us. The Bible says that Jesus said to them on the shore that morning, let down your net on the other side of the boat. Okay, where the fish are. Most people forget that line where he says, where the fish are. They were fishing on the other side of the boat. The fish weren't there. Okay? Right. He said, let down your net on the other side where the fish are. Let me tell you, let down your internet in social media, on Twitter. Let down your internet. Let down your net where the fish are. And you will get a catch. Okay,
Yes.
I'm done. I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
Listen here, okay? Kirk and Paul came in here with the fire this morning, okay? Wow, I am so grateful to the both of you. You have no idea. You guys have just totally educated and opened our minds to this topic. And so thank you so much for being here with us. I want to give you guys a quick opportunity. Paul, how can people find you, support your business, and are there any projects that you want to make the people aware of?
Yes, they can find me on Twitter, Usable Sec Guy, SEC guy, the Usable Sec Guy. I focus on usable security, so making cybersecurity usable to the everyday person in businesses. My business is MB Usable Security, so that's mbusecurity.com. So projects that I'm working on right now, there are two that I'm very passionate about. One is CT Speaks Ministries. We're working on bringing friendship evangelism to the digital space and empowering people to share their faith online, as well as using nothing but their Bible. So I'm very excited about that. I'm working with them, with my father, and getting a chance to help him be able to minister to more people, even outside of his current district, which has been amazing. And then the second thing I've been doing is working with teachers who are looking for alternatives to going back into the classroom, but still being able to take care of their income. And so just going through the process, I've done a lot of work with educators and looking at various learning management systems and just identifying some alternatives. If you feel like you don't want to go into, back into the classroom this fall.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Awesome stuff. Kirk, what about you?
I'm Kirk Nugent. You can find me at Kirk R. Nugent on pretty much every social media platform that's out there. I am host on a show called How It All Works. And this coming Monday at 5:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be having a show called The YouTube Revolution Will Be Televised. The lowest subscriber count on my panel is 40,000 subscribers. The highest is 1.8 million subscribers. You're going to want to tune in Monday, 5:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be chatting about the YouTube revolution and tips and tricks on how you can grow your channel. Additionally, I do media consulting, and my wife does web design, and our website is yourcomposition.com. I'm throwing some links in the chat right now for those that may want those links available. So,
was that guy on that program right there? Is that the guy that does the uncomfortable conversation with black men?
No. I would love to get
Emmanuel Acho.
No.
But,
okay, I'm sorry. I just thought so.
But on that, there's Justin Wilson. Some of you know Justin Wilson. Some of you know Anthony Hackett from Sunset Friday Entertainment. Justin Wilson, his son, my God, that he's a drummer.
Yes, that's who that is.
Yes, and then Justin Coe is that Christian vlogger. He's from out of the Northwest, and he's like a digital missionary. He's got a massive following online, and he's doing some great things in that space. Excited about that show on Monday.
Awesome.
And hey, if I can take one more second, we had Claudia on the show this past Monday.
I saw
and
her
it was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. So if you were talking about, letting down your internet, in the spaces where the fish are, social media was the topic on the show this past Monday. And we had a bunch of, these were experts. They were giving out absolute gold. People walked away with pages and pages of notes. You want to check that out. It's on the channel, howitallworks.com.
Man, this has been a phenomenal show. Everyone in the chat is super excited. They are asking for part 2. I saw one person commented when I said it's time to go. She was like no. So this just lets you both know that you were significantly well received here on our platform, and they absolutely love this information. So we'll definitely be in touch about part 2 for this conversation. Absolutely. As you all know, this is a show that is hosted and sponsored by Message Magazine. Magazine. And so we cannot do this work. You cannot get this information. You cannot enjoy yourself every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. were it not for Carmela, myself, and Message Magazine. So you've got to make sure that you are subscribed, okay? If you are not subscribed to the magazine, you are not supporting the podcast, all right? So if you want to support this podcast, you got to make sure you're subscribed to the magazine. If you want to support this podcast, you've got to donate, all right? So visit our website at www.messagemagazine.com and make sure you are supporting this ministry. We've got Bible studies, we have tracts, we have a host of products and offerings that we just believe will really benefit not just your church, but your personal life as well. Mm-hmm. So make sure that you are subscribed. Give us your email. Make sure that you are getting our weekly newsletter. That way you can be notified on all the amazing articles and videos that we post throughout the week. And make sure, of course, that you are following us on social media at Message1898 and on YouTube at Message Magazine. This is all content that you do not want to miss. All right. As always, it is a pleasure and a blessing to converse with you all, to be here. I'm so grateful to my two guests, Paul Mcneil and Kirk Nugent, this morning. And so, as always, I'll see you all next week. Same place, same time, just a different topic and a different conversation. Be blessed.
Awesome.
Claudia, I think the one other thing that we have to remember,
our behavior is definitely influenced or impacted by, like,
I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and we know that
we're excited that with the powers of Zoom and the like, we can still
the eating of certain animals.
Headlines. I am your host, Claudia Allen. This is my chief executive. Right. So many churches are actually
80% of the affiliates, ABC affiliates here in the United States, picked it up.
Not telling the truth and going back to let's just dip this water up.
Issues. And so we live our lives working. If you think about
brother from another mother, the pastor, Richard, Mark, and I'm telling you, we handle the heavy stuff. We do the heavy stuff.